Hello everyone. Today I want to remind you of the unfinished work of a church. And you might wonder, well, is the church not all about the finished work? And yes, definitely so. We believe in the finished work of the cross. Jesus said it is finished when he died on the cross. We can't add anything to the work of the cross. But Jesus also gave something to the church to do, and that is an unfinished job. And we have an unfinished work as the church in this world until Jesus comes back to get us. And a while ago, I was talking about this unfinished work of a church, and as I finished it, I was just meditating on some of the things that I said, and I felt the Holy Spirit say to me that there's the finished work of a cross and the unfinished work of a church. And the unfinished work of a church is to tell the world about the finished work of a cross. So that is really our unfinished work, and we need to tell the world of the finished work of a cross, of what Jesus did for them, and we need to make disciples of all nations, is what Jesus said. So the other day I was reading something on Facebook, and it really just shook me. It was a quote that said, the greatest tragedy in life is not dying from the coronavirus. The greatest tragedy is dying without knowing Jesus. And there are many people in the world who still don't know Jesus, and it is our job as the church to share Jesus with them, to pray for people, to ask God to send laborers across their path, and to really realize that to make disciples is an unfinished work. And most of the world is currently in lockdown, and many things are on pause, but our mission as believers is not on pause. And we find our mission in Matthew chapter 28 from verses 18 to 20, where it says, "And Jesus came and spoke to them, saying, All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go therefore and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things that I have commanded you, and lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." So we find our mission there, and that is to make disciples. And you might wonder, well, is it not the fivefold ministry people, the pastors and the prophets? Isn't it their work to make disciples? It is, but it is also every believer's responsibility and mission to make disciples. In Ephesians chapter 4, we see that the fivefold ministry is there to equip the saints, to equip believers to do the work of a ministry. And the work of a ministry, dear ones, is to make disciples. And a great friend of mine said that discipleship is relational, it is intentional, and it is missional. So we need to be very intentional on making disciples. We need to reach out, we need to pray for people. And during lockdown, you might not be able to physically go to someone and just tell them about Jesus, but you can pray that God will send laborers across their path. And thank God for technology. God can use technology to get laborers across their path, to share the gospel with them. You can share the gospel with them personally if the Holy Spirit prompts you to do that. And you can also support by praying for ministers, by praying for churches who are actively involved in disciple making in this unfinished work of a church. And then you can also give and enable ministries to make disciples. So don't forget the unfinished work of a church. It's not only the job of full-time ministers, it is the job of all believers to make disciples of all the nations. And Jesus said, when the whole world hears this gospel, when they hear the good news, then the unfinished work of a church will become a finished work, and Jesus will come back for his bride.